Good morning. We're ready to get started. Happy Friday, everyone. This is Rika Stenerson at MMB, and thank you for joining us today at the Recruiting Solutions WebEx. We're going to be talking with Teresa Pivic, the Manager of Agency and Applicant Services, and she's going to be providing tips on posting jobs in Recruiting Solutions. Now, we know that there's been a lot of questions and people are apprehensive about the new system and concerned that there's so much to learn, and we just want you to feel comfortable that we're here to help, and there's going to be lots of applicant guides available or recruiting guides available. There will be many opportunities for you to ask your questions, and Teresa and her team and all of us here on the Recruiting Solutions team will be available to help you learn how to post jobs, and it's going to go great at the Go Live. So everybody just be excited for all the new efficiencies we're going to have with the Recruiting Solutions system. Just a reminder to please mute your lines, and today if you can submit your questions as we're going through, submit through the chat button to the host. I'll be monitoring the questions, and then we'll have people here that will be able to answer questions at the end of Teresa's presentation. And again, this information from today's WebEx will be posted on the extranet site, the recording of the WebEx, as well as all of our past WebEx sessions and other materials that are being created for Recruiting Solutions. Go on the extranet and you can find all of that. In addition, there's information on the careers site, instructions about how applicants can get their resume out of ResumeX, and other updates will be there as well. Our next WebEx session, get your calendars out for November 20th, and we'll be talking about the new onboarding and manage hires process with Nancy Erickson and other staff here at MMB. So I'm going to turn it over to Teresa right now, and again, please submit your questions and remember to mute your lines so we don't hear the background noise. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Teresa Pivic, and as I said, the Manager of Agency and Applicant. And we are excited to help launch the system and help support you in, understanding its functionality and making sure that you can get your postings up and manage your applicant pools and so forth. I have a couple of announcements I want to make. One is we do have the screening question, online screening question deadline of today for making sure that we get your questions in for the soft launch and go live date, but that does not mean that you need to stop submitting them. So please continue to submit them, and if we will continue to vet them and move them through the queue so that when we do go live and we're able to get back in the system and upload those questions, that we will continue to do that. So I just wanted to make it clear that I don't want you to stop submitting, but understand that we do have a period of time where we will not be able to continue to upload them until we go live. And then also, we won't be covering today the layoff and workers' comp list. We are still doing some minor tweaking to that process, and we will be providing that information when it's available. And it certainly will be before our soft launch so that you have that information, and it will be posted on the website. So the topics that I have today that we'll cover are posting template guidelines and tips, posting for bid expression of interest, posting RTAs, our request to announce in that's formally known as, and posting for multiple job classes, and then we'll provide you with some additional updates. So our first item is posting guidelines and tips. So for those of you that have gone through training, this will not necessarily be new information, and for those that will be attending, this might be some good background information. So the job posting, we're going to be providing a job posting template on our extranet site, but wanted to give you a little background that there was a work group that was representing a number of state agencies that put together this template that you see in the system. And it's really important that we maintain some consistency in the look and feel so that when we have our applicants apply for jobs, they know where to find the important information. And like I said, again, we are working on finalizing this quick reference guide, and it will be found on our temporary HR hiring toolbox on the extranet. And I've listed the link below. So there are 5 job posting sections in the template, and they will display in this order and should display in this order. I understand that not everyone has submitted an agency logo, and so if you don't have one, you wouldn't be using this one. So while I say must contain, if at Go Live or soft launch and you're creating your draft postings and don't have a logo available, then you wouldn't be using this. So the other section, the job details section, that section gives you the ability to post different information internally and externally, and it would be certain things that are required in bargaining agreements, and so there's the template information in there that is different for internal than external, and you'll want to be thoughtful or mindful about, you know, what you want to display there. The job summary section. This is a section where you wouldn't necessarily want to just dump your PD. You want to make it, you know, 2 to maybe 5 sentences long so that it's easy for applicants to understand what the job posting is about. The qualifications summary, or the qualifications section, this is where you would put the minimum and preferred qualifications. And we also have physical requirements in that area, and any additional requirements that you have, for example, with a criminal history check or reference check or physical exam requirements, those kinds of things would fall there. The last section is the application details, and this is where we have why work for us, how to apply, contact, which is you want to be sure to add your contact information as a recruiter. And then we have our equal employment opportunity language that is different for MnSCU than it is for, I guess it's listed as our standard. So it's important to make sure you select the right application details section for this. So some other things to keep in mind when you're creating a job posting, accessibility. So the template contains default font and size, and it's important that if you do any copying and pasting that you follow that standard for accessibility purposes. Anything that you would want to add, as in graphics or videos, I want to caution you to make sure that they're accessible. Visibility, think about your audience. So this is in the section, this is in each of the description type sections where you will have decisions to make about whether you want to post something differently to employees versus external applicants. So an example is for job details. There's some default language in there that helps you make sure that you meet the requirements of the union contracts for internal posting. And it may be information that just wouldn't make sense for an external posting, and so here's your opportunity to really target your audience and then meet those requirements for contract language. As I mentioned before, it's important that you would add in your contact information, and then I also mentioned about the 2 different types of templates that you can bring through. So you want to be careful if you're MnSCU that you pick that template, and if you're not, that you pick the standard so that you capture the correct language. And this is a section that you should not change. It's important to keep it as it is.
And Teresa, this is Rika. We had a question about the logos, whether they're accessible alt text, and yes, they will be alt tagged. Our communications director, Janelle, has been communicating with agency communications and requested the logo, so we have quite a few of them. You'll be able to find that out as we move forward, and like I said, there's a lot of them that we already have, so we'll communicate more as we know more.
Maybe just a reminder to place your phones on mute. Okay, so we'll dive into the hot topics. I know there's a lot of interest in can we use the system to post for bid, our expressions of interest, and can we use it for RTAs, and how would that work, and also how would we post at multiple job classes. So those are the 3 topics I'm going to talk with you today. Posting for bid is available, has the functionality in Recruiting Solutions, just as in WebEx. I know some agencies that are using that system as well to post for bid. So some of the advantages to using it is it would be the one place that all employees could go to rather than having to access 2 different systems or 2 different processes. It would be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in self-service because, as you've heard already, employees will be using self-service to access careers, and then that would be available to them anytime. It would be less confusing to employees, and if you choose to use screening questions in the pre-qualification section, they could get immediate feedback if they're not eligible. And lastly, recruiters would then only need to manage one system. So I think there are lots of reasons to consider using Recruiting Solutions to post for bid. If you would just put a posting up for bidders only, we would recommend you can use pre-qualification screening questions to filter out those that are not eligible. And after the posting would close, there is a query or report in Recruiting Solutions that's called Employee Data, and you can run this and be able to look at information on them that you would need to determine whether they were eligible or an eligible bidder. And this is information that is in Semaphore that's pulled into this report. And a nice feature is you can export it to Excel if you want to look at it in a different way, depending on how large your list is. It might be easier to view.
Teresa, this is Rika again. One of our participants have asked, what do we mean when we say one system, using one system? Do you want to talk about that?
So one system means Recruiting Solutions. That's the one place that employees would go and look for bid postings or regular internal only postings or for promotion or any external postings. They would all be in one spot for them. many, or at least I know a few organizations or agencies will use an intranet or use another system to post their bids. And then they would use recruiting solutions for all other job postings. So an employee would have to look on the extranet for a job, or send an email, or they have just a different process. And there are agencies that use WebEx for it all. Let's see. So here are some suggestions for questions you could ask. Giving a little background to them, it's possible to put this in there. This position is open for application to eligible bid expression of interest candidates only. To be eligible to apply, you must currently be employed in the same agency and job class as this vacancy. So I think it's helpful to give a little background information, and then here's the question. So are you currently employed in the agency indicated on the job posting? And then the follow-up question is, are you currently employed in the same job class indicated on the job posting? And if you are unsure of your job class, refer to your self-service time entry page, which is where they could find their job class, or contact your human resource office. So I don't think it's a bad idea to get them doing some research on what their job class is and be able to answer this question correctly. Also, you can create a customized question set for your agency and send that into the MMB selection mailbox, as you would any new screening question that you would like to add to the library. I mentioned earlier this employee data query, and here's just an example of some of the information that is pulled from Semaphore for you to have available to do a quick reference rather than having to log into Semaphore and look up each individual employee. So you can see their agency and seniority unit, bargaining unit, department ID and location, job code, option, employee status, and so forth. I think this creates a lot of efficiency for us to have the information in one spot and pulled for each employee that applies. If the position is not filled with a bidder, and you had only posted it for bidding, you can remove the pre-qualification bid questions and then repost the job for others to apply. And I would caution you here, if you do want to use screening questions, that you would have wanted to ask bidders those questions. You want to be consistent on that you're asking every applicant the same questions. So it wouldn't be that you're asking new screening questions, but that you're just removing those pre-qualification bid questions because you do not want to knock out external applicants from applying to this new or to this reopened posting. Now you do have the option to simultaneously post for bidders and others. And here's where I would caution you not to use pre-qualification screening questions because you don't want to knock out those externals. You could ask a screening question at another level that doesn't knock an individual out. It may be, depending on how it's asked, a little confusing for our external applicants, but it certainly is something to consider. And then when the posting closes, you will have the ability, again, to review that employee data, that report that comes, the data out of Semaphore. And you'll be able to easily see who's eligible for as a bidder. All right, do we have any questions about the bid expression of interest, Rika?
No, no other questions have come in.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the RTA process, and then I think at the end of that section, I could take questions if they come in, and we can cover them if you have any. But this is known now as our request to announce. So those who've been to training, you don't see a drop-down option of RTA, or request to announce. That's gone. But what you see is open continuous. And so you would select, instead of standard, open continuous. Just a little, all of this information you probably already know, but a little review. You know, it's intended for limited use to collect and assess applications to fill current and future vacancies. Can be posted for a limited period of time. Maybe you want to have it open for a month. Could be open for on a continuous basis for those hard to fill positions that you get 1 or 2 applicants that straggle in over a long period of time, or reposted periodically to collect additional applications. If you keep them open on a continuous basis, this is not a process change or a practice change at all, but you'd want to trigger the job search agents at least once every 3 months. Making an update to that posting so that it triggers this job search agent to be able to get satisfy our public announcement requirements. And that's not a change. All vacancies must be the same job class option and require the same minimum qualifications. At the end of the time period, you can choose whether to link existing applicants to a new RTA or send them an email requesting that they reapply to a newly posted RTA. So this is when you end one and want to open a new one. So maybe your 6 months has gone by or your year has gone by and you're posting a new one. And if you have a practice that they don't need to, that you move them to the next one, you could then use the feature of linking. It will give them, it will send them an automated email telling them to apply. Just a reminder about being willing to accept claimers at any time throughout the process, and then always check the layoff and workers' comp list prior to filling vacancies. So there's a lot of flexibility with the system, and there's choices you have. You can post one job opening and then hire all of your applicants to that one opening. So this is different from how we currently have it, where there's one requisition and one hire. So here you have one job opening, requisition, and you can hire 50 people or more or less to that one opening. You can create separate job openings to post for variances such as locations, shifts, etc. So I think it really depends on your business needs, what path that you'll want to go down when you're looking at posting for RTAs. And we're happy to help you with that. So what to include in your posting? Important to list the duration of the posting and how long the applicant list will be used to fill vacancies. And there's an example below. Applications received from this posting will be used to fill current and future vacancies in this job class at the Department of Transportation through June 30th, 2016. Additional information to include is indicate if filling for various locations, shifts, or employment conditions. And again, there's some examples below. And again, none of this is a change. What now you do have is the ability to ask screening questions to gather applicant preferences when posting for various locations and shifts. And I know some agencies have sent in questions for just this situation. It is a question that's asked on the application. However, at this time, we do not have those, or those questions are not required to be answered by the applicant. So I would caution you to not screen based on how they respond to those questions on the application, but rather use online screening questions. to do any kind of screening, because that is a question you can require all applicants to respond to, and therefore everybody has an equal shot at being screened in or out for those reasons. There is a feature in the system that you may have seen in training of group print or view applications, and that's where you can see all the information that the applicant has provided on their application and the responses to their screening questions. There is a report that you could run, and it would give you the applicant list of names, and you could export that list. It's nice if you have, 300 applicants, and rather than, I know I've done this myself, is typed each individual name into a spreadsheet to do some additional tracking outside of the system. So this is an easy way to export just a list of applicant names, and if you're wanting to sort of sort on and track on who's interested in which locations and shifts and that type of thing. Managing your applicant pools, this is with RTAs, I would not recommend that you have a manager into that job opening. So if you would add them to the hiring team and ask them to go in and do any updating, I think that would not be a good practice here. I think the best practice would be you're the one managing the RTA and you would route, and routing is that limited view that Lori had talked about. This way they would just be, if that's how your practice is to send them to your managers for review, for consideration. I know each agency is a little different in how they manage these RTAs, but if you do want your hiring managers to review applications, I would recommend not adding them to the job opening, but add them, or to route the applications to them. Hiring manager, and I guess here's the steps. Hiring manager reviews application information via self-service. Hiring manager notifies recruiter of results. They can do that through the routing. They can make those selections of interview, hold, reject, those kinds of things, and then the recruiter is able to see what the manager status or recommendation was, and then they're able to track that for them, or ask them questions if they have any about who they're maybe rejecting. Well, that's our next topic, so I'm going to stay there. So do we have questions about RTAs?
Yes. Well, this is not necessarily about RTAs, but could you clarify the difference between internal and external postings?
Yes. So in internal, well, so there's maybe many pieces to that. So an internal posting would be something that only employees, state employees, would see through self-serve. An internal posting would not be viewable to external applicants on the careers website. But we also, which is the same thing when I talked about when you create a posting, there's that example of the job details templates, and if you select internal view only, that means that only state employees would see that on in self-serve through that portal. And if you select external only, well, I should say external internal only, then both would see. But you can write specific content that gets sent to external, meaning the career's external website, for external employee or external applicants, and you can send specific content to internal state employees that only they would see. So I guess you have to think of your audience, Is your audience state employees or external applicants? I hope that helped. Any other questions?
Oh, this is a question related to bids. The current practice for bids that the agency has the employee email HR. Should we change that then from what you are saying?
That's your choice. I think it would be great to use the system. You can do the communication through the system. Basically what they're doing is they're communicating to you of their interest by submitting an application. And you're reviewing to see in the system whether they're eligible. And you can communicate then through the system back to them whether they're eligible or not.
I have a question on developing knockout questions. If once the system is up and running, if we find a question, how long would it take to get it entered in the system?
That's a commonly asked or frequently asked question. It honestly depends on if on one given day, what the number of questions that are sent in by agencies. So I could say, we would love to have and tell you the turnaround is a day or two, or even the same day, but I can't predict the volume, and so there could be any given day that the workload would be difficult to manage if there were 300 questions that got submitted on one day. So I can tell you, our interest is in delivering great customer service and being responsive and getting them in there as quick as you need them, and that's our goal. But if there was a given day and there were just a phenomenal number of questions submitted, we would let you know that and give you a time frame if it was going to be longer than a day or two.
Okay. Another question on the bid postings, Teresa. Postings for bids are only sent to me in HR. Should we enter them in the system now?
I'm not sure I completely understand. Should you put them in the system? So maybe some clarification. I mean, in the system now would be resumes, and so you would need to post the job and have them apply. At this point, I wouldn't say that you would ever enter someone in the system unless you've posted for bid and you accept those applications.
Okay. Another question about, will hiring managers and search committee have a choice to print applications? And if so, is there a way to block printing?
There is not a way to block printing, but I think you certainly could let them know, that there certainly is a cost to our environment and to even just the financial perspective of printing on paper, and try to change that pattern or that behavior. So no, we can't block it. It's there, it's available. And it makes sense if you have, your one or two top candidates, or, I certainly would print them and bring them to the interview. Any other questions before I move on to?
Okay, going back to internal and external applicants, please clarify how we will differentiate between statewide and agency-only internal applicants.
So I would recommend that you ask a screening question. So if you're going to do a posting, you would put it in the posting just like you do now. You would add language that would say, this is for statewide, this is for this agency, and then ask a screening question to filter those individuals out. So it's, do you work for this agency, yes or no? Do you, if you would, I guess you don't even need to ask the one statewide because you would only have it visible to state employees. And so there really isn't a need to ask a question about, are you a state employee, because you would only post it to view by those employees and they would be the only ones able to apply. Did I get the question?
I think
right?
So. There's another question related. If you want to have a posting open just for your agency and you use Recruiting Solutions, if you choose the internal, then can all state employees see the posting even though it's open to just your agency?
Yes, they can. So if you post a job and it's for your agency only, all state employees will be able to see that, and I would recommend asking a screening question to filter them out. Also, you do have that employee data report that you can run and easily see which agency they work for. So it's a nice feature. We ready to move on to our last topic is posting a job at multiple job class levels. So Recruiting Solutions, again, offers this as an option. I've been, as well as some of the, my team members have been playing a lot in the system trying to see the benefits of this, and I think it's pretty cool. Some things to keep in mind is that there may be reasons you shouldn't, so be mindful of labor contract plan provisions. If it crosses over into different job classes, may not be an option. So how would you go about doing that? Creating a job opening, you would first start with the higher job class. So if it's your HR specialist, 1 and 2 you're posting, start with the 2. And just like you learned in training or will be learning in training, there's nothing unique or different. You would go through that process. What is unique is that there's this ability to select add another job code. And so I'll show you on the next slide what that, or where you'd find that. But you would enter then the second job class, and then the right information of salary would populate, and then you can update the applicable additional job specification information with that job code. So this is not the best screenshot, but we just want to be able to let you know that this is on the job opening and in the job details section, and it's about halfway down the page that you'll see this add job code. And then what you will find is in the qualifications section, there's the, well, in each section, each of those tabs will have the box in red to the right. It will start listing, you can click through that to see the first job class level that's posted and then the second, and you'll be able to scroll through those. So the system will allow applying screening questions for each job class level on the qualifications tab. Really neat feature. You could choose to ask one set of questions that are applicable to both, or you could ask targeted questions for each of those levels. And just a reminder about always include that one required question, at least on one of the levels. And what happens for the applicant is they will be presented with all of the screening questions when they apply for both levels. And just a reminder, this is not a change, but when you do, this vacancy is being posted at 2 job classes, and the example with HR Specialist 1 and 2. The final job class will be determined based on successful applicant qualifications. and remember to post the minimum and preferred quals for each job class level. When a screening level is run, again, you would have seen or have run screening and training, or you will be shortly, but there is the ability then to run screening for each level. And as the screenshot shows, there shows the job code, and then if you click on one radio button, it displays the results of those screening questions, and if you toggle to the next one, it will display the screening results for those. It's a really nice feature. For any of these things, especially this one, you can continue to post both of these jobs as you do now separately and run your recruitment if that's what you're comfortable with. But I want to just let you know and be aware that there is some functionality in the system that is really cool, and there's some efficiencies that could be gained from having reviewing all of the applicants together in one section. So again, we're here to support you. We're here to help you. I know that all your needs are probably a little bit unique, and therefore, if we need to sort of tailor or walk you through, what might be the best business process for your agency, we're happy to do that. You can reach out to your agency services rep or me as well, and be happy to help you with some of the decision making or understanding the business process or the functionality in recruiting solutions. So any other questions about the three things that we talked about today, which is the posting for bid, the RTAs, and the posting at multiple job class levels.
Just a reminder, if you have questions, please use the chat and submit them to the host.
Should we wait?
In the meantime, we can cover some key dates. This is just a reminder. You'll find these dates in our newsletter as well, but starting next week, November 12th, is the Recruiting Solutions Sandbox environment, which will be available to all the recruiters who have attended the two-day training session. November 20th, the next WebEx, we're going to be talking about onboarding in the new hire activity guide in Recruiting Solutions. It will be the same time, 9 to 10. Watch for the invitation that comes in the Recruiting Solutions newsletter. That will be going out probably next week sometime. You do not need to register for the WebEx. As you know, you can just click on the meeting information inside the email and join the meeting when it's time. And then November 23rd is the soft launch. That is going to be available for HR staff who attended training, and that's the time period that recruiters can begin to enter job postings in the new system. We will also be available, as Teresa mentioned, to help you with any questions during that time, or help you get your job postings in the system. November 30th, we have planned for the next HR Town Hall meeting. More information will be coming on that. December 4th, WebEx will be on the affirmative action and managing the diversity of the applicant pool. That's also the last date for people to retrieve their resume from Resumex, the current system, and there's instructions on the careers site as to how to download your resume and save a copy if you do not have it saved somewhere else. And that's also the date that all postings in Resumex must close. And then December 5th through 7th, Resumex and Recruiting Solutions will be unavailable. That's the transition weekend. And then, as you know, 12/8/15, we go live. So, looking for questions. The agency logo, if you haven't submitted it, I know we keep getting questions about that, but Janelle Tummel is our communications director here. And as I mentioned, we do have quite a few logos already, but if you know you haven't submitted it, just send an email to Janelle. And I don't see any other questions. Are there any other announcements on our end from anyone? Okay.
All right. Well, I am very appreciative that you were here listening to the WebEx today, and again, would welcome any questions you have to me or my team in agency and applicant services. We're here to help, and we're excited about the system going live, and I think this is going to be great.
Oh, copy of the PowerPoint will be posted on the extranet, the recorded WebEx as well. It's closed captioned. We will have that out there as soon as we can, and if you need it sooner than that, please send me an email, Rika Stenderson at MMB, and I'll be happy to forward you a copy. Thanks, everyone. Have a great Friday and a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.